Hello, everyone. Welcome back to CSC Live. It's been quite a while since we've done one of these. Our last one we did was in July, actually, crazily enough. And we thought now was a good time to come back and say hello to everybody and, thank everyone for watching the last, I guess, 15 of them that we did during the spring and summer. So today's discussion, which is going to be covering the topics of crew communication, which is something I'm sure a lot of us have had to deal with over the course of the last few months working in a pandemic world. We thought now was a good time to talk about some things that we've learned and discovered as a team working on the last few months. But before I get into that, I'll just cover a few little things of CSC related topics that have come up since July. As of right now, the December magazine is currently free. We're doing a promotion to the digital online version of the magazine, which is on the Facebook page and the website. And Christina's going to add it somewhere in the comments as well, but you can access the magazine for free. Anyone in the world, members and non-members, it's there, which is a great way to get a look at what our magazine does. I also wanted to just sort of take a little moment to welcome some new people we have to the CSC. We have a couple of new board members. We have Rion Gonzalez, associate member, and Claudine Sauvé, CSC, which is great. We've got some new people involved with us, and they've been really actively involved with our various meetings and initiatives that are working on as we speak. We have our new West Coast Vice President, which we haven't had one in quite a while, which is Philip Lanyon, CSC. He's been with us for a couple months now, and it's great to have someone in the Vancouver west side of Canada aspect of things. So that's been great having him part of things. We also have a new central vice president for Ontario and to the east, which is Penny Wattier. She joined us a little while ago, and also great to have Penny with us. Many people in the industry know Penny from the various companies she's worked with in the past, and now she's going to be working with us to lead various initiatives in the Ontario and East region. And the last thing I'll mention before we move on to our discussion is our AGM is Sunday, the 20th of December. Links will be sent out to our members, but it's a great way for everyone to catch up on where we're at and get feedback on where the CSC is at and what we're up to in the new year. So having said that, I'll start by, I guess, introducing the topic a little bit today, which is crew communication. And I think all of us as DPs and as crew operators and assistants, everybody on our crews, even before COVID, crew communication is a vital thing. Whether it's walkies or some kind of intercom system. As far as ourselves go, our team's been using a HME system for the last number of years as a way for the camera department, initially just within the camera department and maybe the gripper gaffer to talk privately amongst ourselves and to kind of work on shots. But there's limitations to that. It's a single channel. There's pros and cons to it. As we moved towards the COVID related things, we sort of saw a need for a better system. So that's where this idea for the talk came today. So I'll take a moment now to introduce our panel to let everyone know who's here. You guys can bring yourselves in. There you go. We have Jason Ross from Riedel Communications. We have Peter Slazarenko from Matrix Video Communications, and Peter's company is a new sponsor of the CSC. Jason Ross is the Canadian representative of the company that makes the Bolero system, which is what we're going to talk about today, what you've been using. We have Jason Vieira, who's a camera operator, Steadicam, been working with us for a number of years. We have Jasper Vraking, who's a digital imaging tech, who's been working with us for quite a bit too. And we of course have Malcolm Nevsky, who is a key grip and worked with us on the Disney film we just finished. And lastly, the unseen person here is Christina Yena, who is watching us and taking everyone's questions. If anyone has questions out there watching, you can type them into the comment section on Facebook, and she will pass them on to us. But I'll start with, I guess, introducing Jason here, who's basically been helping us get this integration into our world. And maybe Jason, do you want to just introduce yourself, and then I can talk a bit about kind of how we got started?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've been working with Riedel Communications now for over a year, and it's actually been a real pleasure over this year to been working with the film community on this sort of new initiative. We've had in the past, film and production crews using our communication systems, but with a renewed interest in having really scalable, robust communication systems and wireless, just happened to be a time when our Bolero system fit in really well. Just to tell you a little bit about Riedel as an organization and company, we're based in Wuppertal, Germany, but we have offices throughout the world. And in Europe, we're very well known for providing complete managed show service communication systems, data and video systems as well. And one of the unique things with our company is that we actually use our own gear to provide, these managed show services in Europe. In North America, we work with a lot of our reseller and rental partners to do that same piece. But the nice thing is, as a client or a customer of ours, it speaks to the robustness of our gear. Because if our gear fails, it's a problem for us as well as anybody else. So it's been really, really, really interesting.
Well, and to that extent, as I was saying in the intro, that we'd been using HME for a long time, which is a great product, and we will still use it for the right application. But as we were kind of coming into the summer, and I had this project coming up, which was a Disney film, there was the obvious kind of problem was, how do we communicate with each other as a team in face shields and masks and distancing and all of those things that we knew we were going to be facing as a team. That was going to be how do we work with that. And Jasper had actually introduced me to the Bolero system, because he had discovered it months before that, and said we should check this thing out. And we met Jason Ross through that and got a demo of the system, and we actually compared our HME systems with a couple of other systems to kind of just see where does this system sit in that world. And I'd gotten used to working with a single channel system just to talk to the camera team. But then we realized, okay, well, how do you talk to the director when you have to be distant, when you're wearing a face shield and a mask, and every other department. So when we saw that this system could do more than one channel, it could do 7 channels, it could be, you could divide up people into specific conference lines to have your own private conversations. I mean, that was the problem with HME, is that, if somebody on the team wanted to have a little chat, everybody hears it. So everyone had to kind of wait their turn to talk, which is great for certain things if you're a smaller team. But as things get bigger and you expand into, multiple cameras and operators and dolly grips and things, it gets more challenging. So that for us, we saw this is great, because the director on Spin and the production manager had come to us and said, how do we communicate on this? And they were looking to the sound department initially to come up with some kind of intercom, Comtech, voice of God system. And we were like, well, wait a minute, there's actually a system that does all those things, so that's where this came in. And, maybe Jasper, if you want to talk about some of the things you saw as limitations too.
Sure. I mean, I as you did, we've all been working with the HME for quite a long time, and I think most people would be fairly familiar with what the issues and the pluses are. Obviously, it exists as a tool that we use because it is handy. It joins everybody during a camera move or a complicated dolly shot or something with Technocrane, and one person, one group of people can speak as a party as the shot is progressing, so that we're not heard by the actors or by sound, and everything moves forward. So there's a lot of advantages to working that way. Unfortunately, the HME, which was designed a fairly long time ago, had a lot of drawbacks. You had a fairly limited distance. There became more and more interference with it as spectrum crowding is happening on all of our sets because it runs on the 2.4 gigahertz side. It's again just a single channel. Some of them are double channel, but it's very rare that you ever use that. You would end up with a focus puller and an operator maybe wearing 3 different comms, a walkie, an HME, and a Comtech. So those made for some really fun pictures, but really annoying days. So this has been a problem for a while, and I knew that it was going to come up to us to try to find some better way of working. And it had been long enough since HME was out in the 90s that we could, probably find something that was better, that was more designed for what it is, or more, adaptable to what it is that we really need. So that was the the incentive for me to go out and try and find something. I wasn't looking to, to challenge anyone's gear or make anything with a new system, force any new technology. I just wanted to see what was out there. So there was a couple of different options, and the best option that I found was Riedel. It's not that it offers an awful lot more, which is what it does. But the first thing that I found that I really cottoned to was that it was so much clearer than listening on an HME. At the end of the day, on an HME, if you were in a set that had an awful lot of RF interference, you could actually hear the hearing loss that you had on one side of your head from listening to this thing all day. With getting it off of the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum and using DECT, it was just so much clearer to listen to, that there wasn't all of this interference all the time. We'll get into all the additional features and tricks that it brings. But the original idea was that I wanted something clearer that would be more suited to what it is that we were doing, and I think we found it in Riedel.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And actually, that leads on to the next question that I'd sort of like to pose to you guys, because you've been using it for a bit. So maybe we could pick one or two points, either features of the Bolero or workflow changes that sort of directly happened on your sets that was because of a change in comm. Maybe we'll start with you, Jeremy, and then we can go around the table.
Well, I think, I mean, for me, I've always used the CommTech, like, which sound provides to be able to hear the actor's dialogue. I've always worn that all the time because I'm often not actually in the set, which typically I'm outside somewhere. So I need to hear the dialogue for one thing, but also I use that to hear the set. So, typically the boom op will leave the boom sitting in the room with it open, so you can just kind of hear the room. So if you're outside the set and you're wearing the CommTech, you can actually hear the discussions that are happening like between takes, which is very helpful to listen to, like director's notes, or the grips or the camera operators are talking about changing something. You can hear it and you can kind of be one step ahead and call for something or ask for something when you hear that. So I always leave usually a single earbud in one ear to listen to the CommTech for that kind of thing. And then I have the other ear is like HME, for example, so I can talk to the crew, but now I have these two things. So I use that all the time. The nice thing about the Bolero system is that because you can integrate the program sound that would normally be the CommTech into the system, you only have to wear one thing. So now I can just wear that one thing that I can hear both the room if I want to hear that, which is nice because you can decide not to hear it. If you want to turn that off, you can kill that. So if you don't want to hear the boom mic, you can kill that. But I can always have that there to listen to on one system, and I still have the ability to talk to the crew through that system. So I'm now combining it into one thing, and I have the ease of very quickly like turning it on and off. So if I don't want to hear the boom mic, I can just kill it if it's too much noise in my head. But for me, that's the first thing right away. I'm like, can we do this? And Jason had said how we could mix the program sound into it, and right away I'm like, well, that's going to make things so much easier.
Perfect. Yeah. Jason Vieira, how about you on your experience with it? What's changed for you in terms of your workflow, or a feature particular with the system that was like a real God saver for you?
Well, I mean, going kind of back to what Jasper had said about wearing multiple headsets, I found myself so many times wearing the 3 headsets. It's the HME, the CommTech, and then sometimes the second HME if I'm on a techno crane, working with all 3 of those, and then trying to listen to other people even talk to me face to face. But I think it comes down to just having the multiple channels. And I've noticed that going back onto another show with HME, where it's a single channel and a great system, but has its limitations, is you start hearing all the dialogue from multiple different departments. I'm hearing the DP talk to the key grip and the gaffer. And then after a while, it's like you stop listening, and then you don't even hear your name being called anymore. And then they're like, hello, Jason, are you listening? And you go, oh yeah, sorry. Like, yeah, I'm here. I am listening. Sorry. But it's all just become, garble after a while, where with the multiple channels, that doesn't happen. I'm not listening to 100 different conversations throughout the day. It's whatever conversation is directed towards me is perfect. So in that case, it's been a lifesaver.
Fantastic. And also too, I imagine having the ability with the system to uniquely control the volume of all of those different feeds into your headset as well to kind of create a submix makes that communication hierarchy easier as well.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
That's a good point.
So Malcolm, how about yourself?
For me, I had Jeremy just tuned up a little bit louder. So when he spoke, I heard him right away. And I with social distancing with COVID, I didn't have to be right next to him all the time, which I always try to be. But we tried to keep people away from the monitors. And I could be just, offset, and I was a button push away for him, and he was talking to me, and then I can communicate with my team, and it just made things move so much faster. It's so hard to hear people and understand what people are saying with visors and masks, and with the Bolero system, it was just instantaneous. We could, he could tell us exactly what he wanted, and he was talking right to me, so not everybody had to hear. Or if he wanted everybody to hear, he was talking to all of us. So, if a new shot was coming up and it was going to be a big change and whatever, he would talk to the group, and everybody knew what was happening, and we all reacted at the same time. Yeah. And if he wanted to talk to Gaffer and the dimmer board operator, he could talk directly to them, and not everybody had to hear it. So it really worked. And we had 2 Boleros in the grip department, so my right hand grip was hearing it also and could react to it and move and make it happen. I think it really made things move, smoothly, quickly.
Yeah,
and I think another point that's interesting too, that Malcolm, that I remember we talked about this as well, was the fact that like all of the crew, if they wanted to, could hear the dialogue, which is something that normally most of the crew don't wear a ComTech. So you're kind of disconnected from the scene. So especially when it came to like the dolly grips or anyone directly involved with the shot, they can actually hear what the actors are saying during the take, which I think is something that actually drew people into like knowing what the shot was.
Right. A lot of times dolly grips will ask for ComTech for a very specific shot. They'll go to sound and get it. In this situation, all they had to do is turn up their second volume knob, and there was the ComTech at any time. So it just a lot faster.
It's also that if you're already wearing the Bolero system, it's not that last minute going like, hey, sound guys, I need a ComTech. Can you get me like now? Like we're just about to roll. It's like, oh, just turn the volume up there and away we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was actually funny in some of the discussions I had with people. They were like, would comment on how the audio fidelity that Jasper touched on was a really big issue for a lot of people. And there was a need to have to be able to have like whisper communication that's discernible amongst all the people, especially in the scenario that you guys are talking about, where the dolly grips and the DOP, that camera channel needs to be cohesively speaking. And depending on the scene you're shooting, you may be listening for a dialogue cue where the actual actors are farther away. For you're not able to discern that dialogue cue. So that communication was happening over a whisper, and being able to whisper that was great. But then I said, yeah, well, you can whisper with our intercom system, no problem at all. And then they would say, well, actually, now we have dialogue, so we're actually not requiring that communication as much, or it's minimizing it, because now we can hear the dialogue cue for our move, and we can sort of concentrate on the other things that we need to communicate with each other. So very, very interesting. Go ahead, Jasper.
I think for the majority of the people that are watching this right now, of course, we've all done shows now with a full Bolero system with all the managed channels, but I wanted to just introduce everybody a little bit to what we're really talking about. The Bolero is just a simple backpack. It's a little bit bigger and bulkier than the regular HME headset, but with that comes an awful lot more options. You have basically 7 different buttons on the Bolero. Each of these buttons can be individually programmed to a number of different party channels. Somebody like myself or Video Assist or whoever it is that's going to be managing the Bolero system will program which channels work for everybody. So I had about 7 different party channels. And then you also can have direct communication between one head pack, one belt pack and another belt pack. The limitation on this is that you only have those 7 buttons. So we can program any number of different things. But if you used all 7 buttons just to talk to individual people, you wouldn't have a channel left for the all channel or just the camera move channel or that sort of thing. So some of the difficulty in figuring all of this out is going to be how you organize those channels that are available to you. So obviously, one of the nicest things is having Comtech talked back into the system so that you have one channel taken up with that. You've got various other ideas of how the channels will get mixed together. It is also possible with this Bolero system and a separate box called an NSA to get rid of a couple of walkies so that individual walkie channels can be triggered by the NSA box. And those walkies can be sitting on the antenna card or wherever it is that the Bolero antennas are. On our show, we replaced 3 walkies so that the people who wore Boleros generally didn't need to use or have a walkie with them at all. As soon as the Bolero system was up, that integrated with a button push on the Bolero, and everybody basically shared a single walkie to talk back to the rest of the crew. We had, I think, 7 people in the grip department because it was Grips and Dolly and Crane and Techno and all that sort of thing were all on one, and they had their walkie channel as a button push as well. ADs had a walkie channel and camera had a walkie channel. I think we had 4 people in camera on the walkies on the Boleros. We also had our video assist and our continuity connected directly to each other over the comms. Guillermo del Toro had his own comms. We had a voice of God that was available out that we ended up using a regular microphone voice of God more often than not. It's also possible to do other fancy things like queuing. These NSAs can also connect to a dimmer board and cue lights over the comms. There's a lot of things that we didn't get into on our show that are also possible. It's just a matter of facing that complication and wiring that in, and then you can do many more things. ADs can cue individual boxes with a buzz. That they'll have a button that would just buzz one of the boxes and allow for queuing offset. So there's a lot of things that are possible with this type of a system, and it gets rid of a couple of other boxes that you'd ordinarily be wearing. Nobody needs to wear the Comtech if you're also wearing a Bolero, and a certain number of people can also get rid of the walkie. So that's the basic physical plant that we're talking about, and that's the advantage of using the Bolero over the disparate other systems that we tend to use on set. So hopefully that gives you a better picture of what we're really looking at and talking about. I don't think that we've really plumbed the depths of everything that will be possible on the Bolero because it is a complicated system that we can expand out to any number of different things. NSA boxes give us GPIO that can wire in and out of various other things. Everything that we would use for sound and communications can be run through this. So there's an awful lot more places that we could go that we haven't yet because all of us are really just starting on this. But definitely as a start, it's a great start.
And I think, to what you said, Jasper, like on Spin, the film that we just finished, in the camera department, I think we had 1 walkie for the entire camera department. So everybody, the trainee, the seconds, the operators, we all had them. So our entire department was able to function that way and really just have the 1 walkie for talking to somebody who wasn't on a Bolero to another production. We didn't implement for that channel the talking to a walkie function because it wasn't really necessary, but that is an important part of it. Like our AD on Spin didn't wear a walkie. He basically had the Bolero. He could talk to channel 1 production over the Bolero and hear back responses to channel 1. But then as far as speaking to the room, he had the voice of God set up where, over his pack, he could basically address the entire room. So when we had lots of extras or pretty much anything, he could make an announcement to the room. Okay, like what, back to ones, or like masks on, masks off, like all that kind of thing, which also the director wanted. So, she was able to talk to, the actors or give a general note to the room over the voice of God. So anyone who wanted that function could just have that button added to their pack pretty easily. And then as we kind of progressed, we saw that the choreographer wanted one, the disc jockey consultant wanted one, because they started realizing, oh, I can now talk to the dancers, or I can do whatever. I can hear the playback and talk to someone. So as people started seeing it, more people started asking for it, which was quite interesting. We weren't expecting that many people to want it, but even the producers were realizing, like, oh, we have to get one for that person now.
Yeah, I think integration of this is as much or as little as people figure out what the uses for this are. Even having the voice of God, we still used a separate voice of God just because it was more convenient for Guillermo to use a microphone rather than using his Bolero. At any point, we could have just switched back to using the Bolero, though. So there's plenty of other ways of using this. We didn't saturate the camera department with Boleros because we were more concerned with saturating the grip department with the Boleros for all of our moves. So there's lots of different ways with exactly the same system to start having it used, set up, start expanding it out to whoever else needs it. All of this can be addressed. And we were talking before before this the cast here that you could also have a separate system coming in with your techno crane. If they have their own Bolero, we can integrate that into the current Bolero system that we have and expand it out for a day that you have multiple cranes on a crash or a explosion or something like that. And then the next day they just disappear off of your belt packs and you go back to normal again. So there is an awful lot of upgradability and random uses that you can just put this to. So it does tune quite well to different productions.
Yeah. And what I'm just showing here on is the this is the grid layout of actually the system that Jeremy had on Spin. So what we've done here is on this side here, we've identified all the packs, and then we identify their positions, and then we have all their key assignments in these areas. And anything that's color coded here is a conference, and we show the conferences over here. And this is our NSA, which is basically our network stream adapter. It allows us to take any analog inputs or outputs of the system. So as you alluded to, Jasper, the voice of God would be an audio output, and then an input would be the ComTech program sound. So that we can add those into a single platform of communication and information dissemination amongst the set. So this gives you a really good idea of the way that the system can sort of grow and span and the different possibilities. The other thing as well, just to touch on quickly with the Bolero, is unlike other systems, we can have unlimited what are called point-to-point conversations. So any named belt pack or individual that has a belt pack, if I have their key on my belt pack, I can establish an immediate call just to them privately between the two of us. And I've heard a lot of ADs who've really liked that ability. The ADs can have private conversations with the director, where that would have occurred before with walking up to the director, taking him to a location where they could have that private conversation and then upset and moving back. So we've really streamlined that workflow and made it really, really easy. So I think now would be a good time. We've had some really good discussions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring out a short PowerPoint that's going to lay out kind of the system elements. Jasper did a bit of it in the architecture, so you understand a bit about the Bolero system. I wanted to start off with a roundtable just to sort of give you an idea of why we're even talking about this system and comms and what does it mean. So let me just switch over to my PowerPoint here for 1 second.
And that spreadsheet that Jason just showed was actually really helpful for us as a team to figure out how to organize it. Because once we were presented with all these options, we're like, well, how do we figure out who gets what? It was kind of this, and I had to involve the AD department and the producers and say, okay, who wants to get this? Who should be on which channel? So that spreadsheet there was really helpful for us to kind of just map it out and figure out who gets what. So that's kind of, that allowed us to plan it in advance so we could pre-program the belt packs before they even showed up on set.
Yeah, and the system has a lot of power, but you do have to be a bit methodical in how you set it up. But once it's put out there, it pretty much starts to run itself. throughout the production. You guys can see my first slide right now, the onset
Yep.
communication. Okay, awesome.
Yep.
So the first question is why Bolero? You know, we're going to sort of recap sort of a bit of the discussion that we've had in terms of, you know, the people who are on set using the solution. It's great for them. It's great for you to hear it from them rather than from me as a representative of Riedel. But one of the big issues is audio quality and speech discernibility. So we spent a lot of time at Riedel working on an audio codec that would give the best compression so that we could get the most number of Beltpacks on an antenna. But what was paramount to us, and we've been in the communications business for over 26 years making comm. So we know that being able to understand people is what comm is all about. So that was our central focus with the Bolero system. The other thing is full unlimited duplex communication everywhere. What does that mean in a nutshell? That's those point-to-point discussions I was talking about. There isn't a cap on those. Every time you open your key to another person or to another conference line, which is a group of people, it's like having a cell phone conversation with that person. It's not a walkie squawk environment, so you can have a natural conversation about the task at hand and sort of get it buttoned up quickly. We touched on this. It provides a streamlined single communication platform. So what we're doing is we're taking all those, you know, siloed pieces of communication and feeds that people had to have, where you ended up with all of these different things hanging off you, and we've converged that onto a single system where a user can wear a single headset and hear all of these different feeds. And what's key to that is not just being able to take them in, but the control we give at the Beltpack layer to create these little submixes and individual volume controls for the rotary knobs that really make that something that works really, really well. We didn't really touch on this, but Bluetooth headset capable. So for instance, this is something that a lot of people love, and it's something very unique to us in the wireless intercom space. So you're able to pair your own wireless headset. Jeremy's wearing today the Aftershok's OpenComm headset. It's available at Best Buy, any type of Bluetooth headset we'd support. But the Aftershok's are great because they're bone conducting, so it leaves your ears open to hear ambient sound, as well as it has a small boom mic that goes in front of your mouth. So it functions very much like a traditional comm headset with a dedicated microphone in the right location for speech discernibility. And you just pair them, integrate them. And then the other thing with those things is they've got great talk time on them. So about 16 hours. And our belt packs give you about 17 hours out of the box. So we are ready for a day on set. The standard joke I get from more film guys is, well, you can handle about a half day of our normal shooting time at 17 hours. So it's always, I always enjoy that. I'm always like, whoa, you need to talk to your superiors. Easy, flexible, and powerful configuration user interface. So to configure the system, there's no specialized software installed on a laptop. You connect a laptop to an antenna, you type in the IP address into your Chrome browser or your browser of choice, and up comes your configuration screen. And we'll go back to a little group panel discussion after this. And then after that, for those of you who want to stick around, I'll delve a little bit into the UI and show you a bit of it about how we set the system up. So automated volume level control. So the other thing that we do too is we provide some intelligence in the system where we can auto dim and auto raise levels within your comm based on the user needs. So for instance, a classic example would be program sound. We would put that on what we would call low priority, so that if you have program sound in your pack and anybody talks to you, that will be dimmed down, and vice versa. We can place high priorities on certain individuals. So if the director speaks to anybody on comm, everyone else's conversation will be dimmed and the director will be dominant. So that helps streamline where you would normally be reaching for the belt pack and making volume adjustments constantly. We can automate those to create a really nice workflow. And Jasper touched on this, easily scalable. So I call it bring your own pack. So we can easily add packs and groups to the system so that they can become part of the production. So if a techno crane comes on site, they're going to be there for 4 days, and they've have their own Bolero platform that they use as they go from production to production. With enough advance notice, as Jasper tells me, just because the timeline's on set, he'd like to know a day before, but he can take those Beltpacks and add them to the system and create a new network that's a scalable communication system on set. And then those users can, after 4 days, can leave the set and they can move on to their next production, and they can set up their own little communication island to just use maybe something that they're doing that's not part of a larger set. So really, really easy. It's building blocks type system, so easy to use. Here's an example of the antenna. So the antenna is the core of the system. A Bolero system at its base element is basically one antenna and 2 belt packs. We have a comm system. We could support up to 10 belt packs with a single antenna, and we can support up to 5 antennas in one zone. So we can support up to 50 belt packs in one area. Now we can create another antenna array just a further away from that, and then we can create a unified mesh network that will basically allow for belt packs to move from area to area, and there'll be seamless handoff. So we can support many more belt packs if that's what's required. Great range, 300 to 600 feet indoors, up to 800 feet outside. And then Jasper touched on this as well. DEC spectrum. So we're in that 1.9 gigahertz. It's a license-free frequency zone, and we work really well on set. And we know that because we've already been on multiple sets. I think we've been on about 8 to 10 productions in Toronto in the last little while. We have a number of different productions in LA using us, and we have no issues with any of the existing wireless systems that are being operated on set, like DMX controllers or wireless video systems. And the great thing as well is that it's a quiet digital system. It actually freaks people out a little bit because when everyone stops talking on comm, which is rare, the system is absolutely quiet. You will not get that hum that's going on in the system. You will not know that you have the headphone on at that point, to the point where there's something called side tone, which is if your microphone's on, you have a bit of a feedback of yourself into your ear. We've introduced that back into the system digitally to let users know that they do have a microphone on, but we do that internal to the pack. Configuration, like I said, it's just an IP address into a browser session, and you're up and running, and you can do all the configuration of the system. We also have DC power on the antenna, so it's a 4-pin. So that works really well in a film environment where you don't always have AC available to it, and it makes you able to take the system to locations as well. So here's an example of a solution that one of our DOPs who started using the system early in LA. We have a massive cheese plate on the back, so he was able to take a Dionic battery and mount that to the back, use the 4-pin connector into the antenna, and he's got a completely modular travelable system, really easy to move around. And the antenna doesn't use a lot of energy, so he was reporting about 8 hours of runtime on a single Dionic. So he could do 2 days easily with that. So here's just a quick breakout of the antenna for people who are a little bit more interested. We also have an e-ink display on the front of it. Why an e-ink display? Even when the antenna is off, it'll show you all the relevant information about the antenna. One of the more important ones being the IP address. My joke with this, I always did rentals before for years and years, and you would break out the painter's tape, write the IP address of the antenna on it, and then it sits in the corner for a bit, and then the paint dries out and it shrivels up, and then you open up the case and there's a shriveled up piece of painter's tape tucked in the corner, or someone's kicked it out, and everyone's staring at the antenna going, what's the IP? Oh my gosh, we got to find out. So we get rid of that problem. It's an e-ink display, and we can label the antenna. We can give it names and everything you need. So the large cheese plate on the back, which is ideal for any type of mounting required. And the way that we can interconnect the antennas is just simply over network cable. So super easy to add more antennas. Same thing, a network cable in gives you the IP for the control, and off you go. So the Beltpack, which is the core of the system, Jasper touched a little bit on it. Most people will say 7 channels. We get in trouble for that. There's 7 configurable buttons, and Jasper touched on this a little bit. A button or a key is you can program any number of features to it. So as Jasper alluded to, we can put a GPIO trigger on that, so that we could trigger, a DMX lighting board to do a lighting cue. We could trigger the bell that says the set's hot, so we could give that to an AD. And he could trigger that off instead of doing it through another means. So now wherever that person is, he can trigger that system off. But we can program keys to that. We can program conferences. We can program individual point-to-point belt packs. And we also have a reply key here as well. So the reply key, if there's someone who's spoken to you and they're not on your pack, you can simply hit the reply key and you'll automatically start a conversation with that person. So super easy to get in touch with people who aren't on your belt pack. And that key is programmable. So it doesn't have to be a reply key if you're not using it. I know some sets where they've actually put the voice of God on that because it's a big red button. So you know exactly what you're doing when you hit it. And it's not something you're going to hit by accident because it's away from the other keys. So you're not going to end up keying that button and having the conversation you thought was private go over the voice of God, which isn't going to be good. We also support a walkie-talkie mode. So on the actual belt pack, we have a speaker and a microphone here so that when a headset is not connected to the belt pack, you can just hit a key and talk to it as if it's a walkie-talkie. So this is actually a pretty handy thing for like when you're off on lunch or maybe on meal or away from the set. You can just put your belt pack down on the table, and if somebody needs to squawk you, you can still hear the feed without having your headset on, and you can kind of get your headset off and get away from the fatigue of having that on all the time. And then a fun fact, and if you ever come see us at a trade show, you'll get to know this. It speaks to the robustness of the belt pack, but the belt clip actually, it was developed to basically hang the packs onto a nail. But what we've decided they're actually really, really good for is opening beer. So you can use that to crack open at the end of the show day. Most of them are twist top now, I know, but you can open a beer with it, and it speaks to the robustness of the pack, because some of the other systems out there, if you were to do that, the whole pack would go up in the air and the belt clip would have broken off and pieces would be everywhere. Oh, and just quickly as well, we have these rotary knobs as well that are on the packs, and so we can dynamically assign those to control different volume levels on the keys within the pack. So we can set them as fixed, or we can have them move around. So once again, more and more control. And also with those rotary knobs, we can with a simple button push can go into the different keys and program an individual volume for those to create a submix of what goes to your headset. So a lot of control for the users so that they can if someone's yelling into their headset the whole time, you can just go to that individual's key and turn them down. So now that they're normal to you, and you kind of create like a submix of that. USB-C we have on the bottom. So we sell a charger where our belt packs can be docked into, but we also give the user the ability to, just with a simple USB-C cable, recharge the pack on their own. So this has kind of been handy for some people during COVID. So you can basically hand the belt pack and the headset to the crew member and say, here's how you charge it. It's your job to come to set each day with your pack ready to go and charged. And we also have a line input into the system. So if we don't have an NSA as part of the system and we're using it in a smaller configuration, we can actually take the CommTech and jack it right into the actual belt pack. And that will provide the program sound to that individual user. So you'd have to still wear the CommTech, but now you're not wearing another headset. So we can still take that audio in without having a whole NSA. So we have a couple of different options in terms of how we can provide that program feed into the system. We like to give people as many different ways to do things. Oftentimes when you talk to us about, hey, I want to do this, we'll often come back with 2 or 3 different ways of doing it. So as we've discussed, all conferences, we can have a number of conferences and we can have user IDs on the belt packs. The other nice thing with Bolero that's a change from traditional systems that were used in film is we can give full alphanumeric IDs to belt packs, to conferences. So, for instance, I could have a key that says director, but then I could have that key say Guillermo, if that's how we want it to be programmed in the system. So I can call things what I want them to appear to be. So that makes the workflow much, much easier in terms of who am I talking to? And as the system scales out, it's absolutely essential to setting it up. We can have as many duplex conversations as we want. That's amazing. So everyone's, there's no cap, no one hits a key and they're shut out of having, true natural conversations about the issues that they have. Every key, as I said, we can adjust the volume locally, as well the displays, full sunlight readable, so you can use them outdoors. We also have the ability, and you'll see this later, to control the actual brightness setting of the screens. So for instance, if the camera team is shooting a scene that's very close to the talent, then we want to make sure that those packs they dim right down so that they're not affecting any lighting on the set. So here's an example of the Aftershocks headsets. This is a picture that Jeremy had sent over to me as soon as he bought the units. So these have become, he loves them. They're, we compare to any Bluetooth. So some people prefer using AirPods. They can utilize those or any other, Bluetooth headset or device. You just set it to pair and then off you go. Oh, as well too, you can also pair, the Bluetooth can also be paired with your phone. So for instance, if you want to have a conversation, you can pair the phone to the Bolero and have that conversation using your headset. The other thing you can do is you can quickly and easily key another crew member or a conference into that conversation, so that you can then have a discussion with that individual who's now come to you via cell phone. So another additional way to sort of patch people into the system and create that single communication platform. The NSA, I'm going to take Jasper with me when I go on different sales calls, because he's done a great job at outlining the system for me. The NSA is basically, it's just an analog to AS67, which is what our Bolero system is built on. It takes any feeds basically in or out of the system. So the workflows that we provide on these is, we bring the program sound in. Some people are still using the ComTech to plug into the NSA. I'm convincing a lot of people to not do that and actually take an audio feed from audio and plug that in to the NSA, so that you don't have a wireless device that's transmitting the audio to the NSA, because you'll get better quality from the system. And my true belief is, if you go to the audio guy and tell him that he doesn't have to give as many ComTechs out or take care of them, he'll automatically run you as many cables as you require.
Well, that's actually, Jason, I was going to say that we did that on Spin. We bypassed, we started off with the wireless ComTech and then realized that we were basically adding in the interference on the ComTech into the system. So we went hardwire and it was much better. And there's a question from Mitch. Mitch asked if the packs are waterproof or rainproof.
So the packs are not completely waterproof, but they are, I'll just go back to I think they're IPv5 rated. Yeah, I think they're IPv5 rated. So they can handle rain. They just can't be submerged.
Yeah, with bitter experience, I can back that up. Handled an awful lot of rain on our show, Nightmare Alley. Did not handle dunking in the toilet very well.
No, we are not toilet rated. Our toilet rating is low. The engineers didn't do the toilet test, but and that's mostly because realistically, the only reason why we're
can we put that on the map?
Yeah, I'll put that on the roadmap for sure. Yeah. So yeah, and then I could see. Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. And then Jasper already talked to this as well, and this is kind of like I love how you guys are already using more and more of the functionality, because what a lot of people don't use on this particular box is the GPIO, and it's a really, really powerful device to, it's a simple, GPIO is quite simple. It's just a closed contact on or off, but our ability to be able to fire off, downstream events, it's something that when you start to play with, you can do a ton of different stuff with. So I'm glad you guys are already sort of delving into that. And that becomes the basis of how we can interface walkies. So we can interface the walkie systems by having the GPIO basically doing the squawk talk, and then we break out the analog audio in and out of the walkie channel to sort of create that integration. And if anyone wants to learn more about that, you can contact either myself or Peter Cicerenko from Matrix, and we can lead you through how we would sort of go about doing that. Here's a quick blow up diagram of the belt packs. We've covered a lot of this already. They have vibration built in them like a cell phone as well. So you can call somebody, like if someone's not responding to you, you can make their pack vibrate if you want as well. We find that's a really good way to get people, noticing that you're calling them or that they're not near their pack. And once again, the packs, like the quality of the packs, we're in the same live event business that you guys are in. And so because of that, the robustness of the packs, I think anyone who gets their hands on them or sees them can speak to that for sure. And this is just a really simple diagram of kind of some simple party line setup. So, you could set up an operator dolly grips party line or conference, a camera conference, a grip conference. And then we can also have, point-to-point communications between these belt packs, DP, gaffer, key grip. So what it helps to do is it helps to preserve the workflow of the various groups. But at the same time, it means that individuals who don't need to be involved in a conversation don't need to be, and those who don't need to listen don't have to hear it. So if the DOP calls to the key grip to make a lighting change, the key grip can then communicate to his grip department, and that communication can occur amongst themselves while they're fixing that issue. And the DOP just needs to know from the key grip that we're on it. And now we've siloed that communication, and now it leaves all those other people to now go and do whatever they need to do and have more conversations and continue. So we keep, we're taking the silos of communication that were there before, but we're joining them up over the top to make it easier to communicate between those different disciplines on the set. And we'll get more into this later on. We'll go through the configuration engine, but this is a couple of screenshots of it. One of the key bits is that if someone asks for a pack, a key on their pack, you make the change, it gets sent to the pack, it happens instantaneously. There's no system shutting down and rebooting. The system's still live, it happens immediately. So there's nothing being affected if you make those changes. So
yeah, I have to speak to that. I feel like there were definitely times where I'd ask for a change to be made on my pack, and it was like instantaneously. I was like, wow, that was incredibly fast. And I'm on set and they're over there, and it happened.
Yeah, it's as fast as I can open the UI and make the change.
Yeah,
so,
it was quite incredible.
To a certain extent, once you understand the system and know how to navigate in there, if you unlock those tools, you can actually do an awful lot of that from the belt pack itself. There's quite a lot of menu availability inside the belt pack where you go into menus. You can actually adjust your own channels and set up a direct talk back and forth between yourself and someone else from your own belt pack. So though it is a little bit more complicated, I wouldn't give that control to most people. But if reach in and say, hey, I need to have a conversation with this person right now. I'm going to take my channel 7 and turn it into this person's direct talk, push that button and talk to that person.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
Well, that actually brings up a question that Richard was asking, like, who sets up the system? And Jason, Jay, you actually kind of talked about it when you said you could ask for a change to be made. And I think what we saw with our crew was that as the crew started to learn what the system could do, people started asking questions, because on our set, Will, our Q-Take operator, took on the role of being the Bolero system guy. So he had like the little cart next to his Q-Take, and he was running it. On Jasper's show, as the DIT, Jasper was running it. And for us, it worked out that Will took it on, and he was great at it. And so if any of us needed something, we could just call it over the headset and say, hey, Will, can you add this button to my pack? Or can you, because you can also make, like I have one of the packs here just to show for scale, size, and the buttons, but you could say, oh, can you make this button be latching? Because sometimes if you're operating, you want to basically press the button and not have to hold it down while your hands are busy operating or using the wheels or whatever. So you can have the option of being momentary, or like touch it once and it stays open. So I
Yeah.
know that Jay would sometimes ask Will, like, hey, can you make this button be latching now or whatever? But then Will would make the change and instantly the Beltpack would update, which was really great. And I know, Jay, like maybe you can talk about like as you guys, as the team started to get into like using it, the A and B teams saw a way to actually like privatize their conversations.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I had we called it the A team, and I was talking to my dolly grip and focus puller. And I think even at some point our second jumped onto that line as well. But it just allowed me to have that separate conversation. It was like, hey, I need you to push in a little bit more. And that way my focus puller, Boris, would know that we were about to push in at that time as well. And also separate the channel where I would be able to talk to the B camera operator, Mitch himself, and be like, hey, Mitch, whatever explanation I'm about to go in, or I'm going to pan left a bit more if you need to get in, and have those conversations too, where it was separate from, and at the same time, Mitch could be having his conversations with his dolly grip, and I wouldn't be hearing that interference mid shot with it. So,
and you could whisper. And the great thing is too, you could whisper.
Completely. I mean, there were so many times I was like, I honestly can't believe they can hear what I'm saying right now. Because I was like, between the mask and the face shield, I was like, I can barely understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, setting this thing up and getting all the channels figured out. I mean, as you know, I started off setting this up as we were coming back from COVID, and had a bit of a plan and a spreadsheet, and figured out what channels I figured we needed and that sort of thing. But as it develops, as your workflow on set changes, there's always going to be different ways to communicate, who needs to talk to where. Wouldn't it be great if we had a channel that just included these people? That's when you're sitting on set and designing new party lines, making direct connections, changing up which people want what on button 1 and what on button 2, and all that sort of thing. It's not a particularly difficult interface as the person who's managing it, but it is not trivial. It is something that you have to dig into and figure out before you're sitting there on set. And there will be times on set where people want things done, or things have now gone wrong, all of the antennas are down, but you need to be working at the job that you're working at. So it is something that we're going to have to figure out, at the beginning of the show, who's going to be responsible for this, and what is that worth to that person to make this all work and happen, and what are the expectations and the responsibilities. And like I said, it's non-trivial. You will be doing a bit of time on a lot of days, maintaining what everybody is expecting from the Bolero system. But this adds so much. It definitely is something that we want to see, come and join us on set. I don't see it being another person on set that needs to wrangle all of the Bolero stuff. It's something that various tech people could work out on their own, but it is something you have to plan ahead of time. Who is going to be running this?
I think also that that being said, that once the team, like when we started this process on Spin, I brought Malcolm into the conversation and Steve, our gaffer, and we all talked about it. And I wanted to kind of make sure that everyone understood that it would benefit us as a group, that the whole team would benefit, and that, thankfully, Will was involved in that discussion as well, our Q-Take guy, and he basically stepped up to take on that role because he'd never seen this thing before. He was totally new to it, but he learned it, and I think that's sort of where every show is going to be different. Some shows it might be the sound department, some shows it might be a DIT, sometimes it might be a playback person, or maybe it's somebody within camera. Like with our old HME system, it was our camera team that ran it, and we looked after it. So I kind of immediately assumed it was a camera thing. But I know some grips have said that maybe the grip department might run it potentially, because it depends on who sees it as their priority, I guess, really.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, you're not going to be entirely on your own, between Matrix and our techs and Jason and myself. You're going to have full support on the system, especially initially for setting up and getting it going. I'm sure as time goes on, everyone will become much more familiar with it. But certainly initially, we're all about support. It's a very critical part of our the way we do business. So definitely, you'll be in good hands.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one question from Jeff we covered in the PowerPoint, but I want to just make sure that Jeff got this answer. He asked about what the range to the base station was like and what frequency do these operate on. So they operate on the 1.9 gigahertz band, which is the DEC spectrum. And that was traditionally the spectrum that your wireless phone would attach to its base station. And in terms of range, we get about 300 to 600 feet indoors and about 800 feet outdoors. The great thing with DECT in terms of a frequency is that we get a fair amount of bounce inside. And because we spend a lot of time working on these algorithms so that we could make best use of that. And that's why you get that fantastic sound with the Bolero, and clarity is a combination of the codec, but also our ability to be able to switch between whatever the best signal is quickly. And that's really the secret sauce in the Bolero system. Basically, we can benefit from those bouncing. So depending on the environment, we can actually get down some hallways and things like that. So those are kind of some higher level ranges for that.
The important thing also is it tells you when you're not connected.
Yeah.
So it's not like you'll walk out of range and find out that you can't hear somebody calling you. It says, not connected, and that's important.
Also we on spin, I think we had 4 antennas and we spread them out. So we had them spread around the stage, and we also had one out by craft in the truck, so that if anyone left the stage and went out to the craft or truck area, they were still in the system. So even if you were way out by the trucks, they were still able to hear and talk back to us, which was really great.
And it sounds good right up until it tells you it's done. Right? It's not as though this gets thready and it sounds like it's underwater, if you're 800 feet away. It sounds quite intelligible, and then it's gone. So it's not nearly as much of a reducing curve as you would get on the older HME or analog systems.
Yeah. And just quickly from a maintenance perspective, and you could speak to this as well, Jasper, is you don't, unlike other RF spectrum systems, there's no management in DECT. You're just adding belt packs and antennas and creating a network, and then the belt packs are just on that network and they manage their own. Like, you're not having, these belt packs are between this frequency and this frequency and this frequency and this frequency. All the belt packs are part of the system. You add them and then they're just there. So you're not managing RF spectrum.
We're not changing frequencies. We're not assigning belt packs to individual antennas, that sort of thing. Everything hops quite well.
Yeah, and that's happening seamlessly. And as Jeremy said, where they're using multiple antennas, as that individual moves through the set, where he goes offset and goes to the craft truck, he doesn't hear that at all. He has no idea that he's actually seamlessly handed over to another antenna that's now taking care. There's no hiss, there's no pop, there's no discernibility. And if you do get to where you're out of range, if we have it programmed in the belt pack that a nice British lady comes on and tells you that you're no longer in range, and so you've been told, so that you don't walk 4 kilometers away and say, how come my belt pack's still not working?
Yeah.
You get told you're out of range. So fantastic. So actually, this leads me on to like a nice question I wanted to ask. Obviously a lot of the intercom, changes and stuff like that. And obviously, Jasper, you began this search for intercom, before COVID, and saying, is there a better way to do this? We need a better system. We need better audio quality first and foremost. And then, then we added so much more with the Bolero system. But I just wanted to get your guys' feedback on, it was sort of born, the impetus was born out of it from COVID. It really pushed the comm side of it along, because you just couldn't, business as usual was not on. You needed an efficient way to communicate between people and standing beside each other wasn't an option anymore. What are your guys' thoughts on this solution, like moving forward post COVID, how it's changed the set workflow and how it'll continue on from there?
Why don't you go first, Jason? Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to my point is that I find the clarity, and with wearing most of the time being in the situation that I'm in, I have to wear a mask and a face shield because I'm usually close to the actors. And so you end up just wearing the face shield almost all the time, even when the actors have left the set. But just with that to the fact is like, I'd have a harder time actually hearing somebody right next to me wearing the two items as well, that I'd be like, just talk to me through the Bolero. I was like, it's actually easier for me to understand you right now if you talk to me through the Bolero versus like I'm trying to do one of these where I'm like, I'm it's still so muffled. Yeah, I mean, for that fact alone, I was like, this is incredible that I can hear you better through this than being 3 feet away from me right now, because I have such a tendency to try to get close to somebody, and obviously in COVID times it's like we have to keep our distance, but it was like, and that's being so helpful. And then also just being so far, having to be so far apart from each other, it's like it is easier just to talk to each other through that system and have a wide range of people that you can talk to very easily.
Yeah, even when you're in the same room, like we could be literally in the set, like standing, you're on the other side of the set and I'm over there and we're talking about the shot. I mean, it's useful for that. Even when I'm outside the set somewhere else, yes, it's great for that. But often we're literally in the same room. Like I could be 20 feet away or 10 feet away talking to who's in the room, like Malcolm or any of the guys, and we can have a discussion over what we're going to do. And we can talk in the room and hear each other, even though we're, covered in face shields and masks and stuff.
It's a way of keeping the set quieter, because
Yeah.
we're talking, you're talking in a normal voice, and you could, be looking at the person across the room and they can hear you, and you can be whispering and looking at them in the same room, and everybody's can be part of that, and everybody can chirp in if they have a great idea on what to do next. Continuity was an important part, because they were always listening and knew what was going on, where before they never knew. They sit at the monitor and they're busy taking notes, and they miss out on a lot of things that are coming up.
And that's actually a good point, because they'd often wouldn't be able to jump in fast enough after a take to be like, oh, that thing was wrong, or they grabbed the thing with the wrong hand. Now they could actually immediately chime in and say something was wrong there.
Yeah, and so many times the camera's rolling and she jumped in and said, Jason, tell her to use the other hand.
Yeah.
And Jason was right there and could do it. It saved a lot of takes and wasted takes.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I never thought about that they're never usually in the communication range.
Yeah, there's departments not on this panel that have definitely been made their jobs easier by putting this Bolero system in place. I mean, we had Doug Rothstein and PT on a direct one-to-one channel back and forth as Doug wanted to look at things and that sort of stuff. And the way that this can impact the way that we work on set, I don't think that we have a real sense of this yet. Right now, we're living in really special and weird times with COVID and with all of this new comms just starting. As we cross-pollinate all these different ideas from, hey, this worked really well on Nightmare Alley. What did you guys do for that on Spin? We'll get a better and better handle on exactly how this is going to integrate into the way that we work. I don't see it getting worse. I see it getting a lot better. There's a lot more ways of using this that we haven't really scratched the surface on. When I started researching all this stuff, it wasn't to find a way of working during a pandemic. It was a way of trying to find a better way to use the comm technology that's out there that's not from the 90s. That will make our jobs easier. I mean, walkies started in the 50s. HME started in 92. There's lots of better ways to do this stuff than 25-year-old technology. So this is a way that we can all start actually whispering in each other's ears as we work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it does almost feel like it could take over from walkie-talkies themselves. I mean, with having multiple channels and be able to have dual conversation happening at the same time, it's like I'm not having to wait for somebody to finish talking before somebody's talking back to me. I think that's already like an incredible part of the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to when everything gets back to whatever the normal is having a beer and a Bolero event where we can get everyone together to pop open some beers with their Boleros and just have a general discussion. There you go. Just have a general discussion amongst all the groups of, like, you know, like Jasper said, how are you using the tools? How are you using the system? Because I've actually learned a lot about the film world and how you guys work from doing demos and interfacing to your groups, being on set, and doing demos, and I've learned a tremendous amount. And it's been really, really good. And each time someone comes to me and say, yeah, actually, could it do this? And I'm like, yeah, actually, we can do that. And here's how we would do it. And they're like, oh, that's okay. That's interesting, you know. So yeah, it's going to continue to grow. And as well, the idea with the Bolero system and a fundamental part of Riedel is we have this mantra, which is software enabled hardware, and that goes through all of our different systems. So Bolero's a very new product still, and it's a second generation product. It came from a lineage, but what we're already doing is introducing software applications to run on the existing system. So we just added a new firmware, where with an additional license, you can go from 12 party lines or conferences, which is what we support now in the standalone system, to up to 30. So most of the people, when I began conversations with them, they'd be like, well, we don't even know if we'll use 12. And then, you know, as the system grows, they're like, so how many can we get after 12? You know, so you just kind of like sort of sit and percolate, like, okay, why don't you try it and then come back and see what happens. And then the other thing we came out with that too is we've added a DECT spectrum analyzer to the antenna that you can run as a software layer. So for instance, if you're going to an environment, location, or setting up in a sound stage, you can set up the antenna during your camera tests and then just run it, and it'll give you a 3-day histogram of all the DECT traffic that's happening in that spectrum. And we can also put on a Beltpack too, so you can monitor your Beltpacks. If there's one guy every day, his Beltpack, he complains he's losing connection to his Beltpack, well, you can track him and see that, yeah, well, you get in your car and go to the store. So that we don't have a we don't have an antenna at the store. So that's why you're losing, you know. You can identify that and you can provide a solution for it, which is like, well, maybe we need an antenna in this area. If you know, if the director and certain people are going to an area that you don't have antenna coverage, you can add it. So these are just the way that we're going, where we're adding, you know, just additional software licenses onto this hardware platform so that it continues to grow and develop. So it's very, very interesting. So I think we covered off most of the questions, and we've been on for about an hour now. Thanks, guys. It's been fantastic. I think what I'll do now is, for those who want to stick around, I'm going to take us through kind of the configuration user interface screen, to just show you how you configure the system. We'll just do it briefly. If you do want to deep dive into this, myself and Peter Cisarenko are available. Contact us. I can spend hours and days going through, and we have some other guys who can go down the rabbit hole even further than me. So, so I'm just going to share my screen with you, and then I'll show you this configuration UI. There you go. You guys can see it?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So basically, I've got my trusty antenna by my side over here. I've got a simple Ethernet cable connected into my laptop. I've opened up a Chrome session on my PC and merely typed in, this is my IP address of the antenna, and then bang them in so I can see my antenna. So there's a couple of different ways, submenus that you can go through in the system. So it begins with the antennas. So here I can see that my antenna radio is on for the one antenna that I have in the system. And if I have multiple antennas, I would see them all listed out here. I have the ability to name the antenna. So you can see here, I've named it CSC Live for the event today. I have a user ID, and then I can see the IP address here. And now I can see as well how many Beltpacks I have attached to that actual antenna. So I actually have 5 Beltpacks in my demo kit. So I have 4 here, and Jeremy has one at his place. But because the range isn't kilometers, I'm not picking up his Beltpack. So if I go into here, I can make some simple changes. So someone like Jasper would appreciate this on the networking side. I can, it's a static IP, so I have the ability to really easily change the IP or anything to do with the networking side of it quite easily. So normally you wouldn't touch most of this, but you can. This is the level of control that we give to the users. IO devices. So this is where I configure that NSA, and that's that box that brings all the analog audio feeds in and out. So our voice of God, our CommTech program sound, and as well as our interface to the walkie-talkies. So I can go in and I can edit that here. And basically I see all the different things I can configure. The nice thing is, so here you can see I've set up an input only feed, and that's my program sound. Everything on this configuration tool is all drop down. So you're not hard coding anything. It's simple to sort of figure out because it's all there in the drop downs. So here I've got the input only. I can use my 4 wires to bring in other comm systems if I want to. Not something you might do in the film environment, but you have the ability to do that. And here's my voice of God. So that is an output only. And then I've assigned that to my channel 2. So I just apply and close those, and then I can make those changes. So I can configure them and I can name all of these feeds as well. So these I can just go in and I can change them to whatever I want. And they will dynamically change anyone who has the key so that they have that, and then I can program that key.
Meaning that shows up on their Beltpack. That
Yeah,
whatever you named it as.
shows right up on their Beltpack. So they're not seeing NSA input 1. We're gonna give it, we're really big in comm on naming conventions. Actually, it goes many layers deep, even on the Bolero. So there's a Beltpack number ID, there's a Beltpack name, so you have multiple ways that you can identify things within the system. Beltpacks. So this is where I can see all my Beltpacks. So as you can see here, I've got the 4 online. I can see the battery on them. So I haven't charged these in a couple months since I've been doing demos. So they're getting various levels of low, but just shows you that I can actually monitor these to keep an eye on them. I can flick on direct edit here, and I can go in and I can directly change on this menu the names of the packs and the profiles that they're on. It's a drop down menu to the profiles. And if we go in here, we can change everything on the Beltpack, but I'm going to show you where we do that in another location. That makes it really, really easy in terms of the workflow. So you might be thinking, oh, well, now I have to set up all these Beltpacks, and I got 25 Beltpacks, and that's 25 configurations. I got to configure all those, and we've been there. We said no, that's not what we necessarily need to do. So we have things called profiles. So what a profile is a profile is a kind of a baseline standard for how we're going to set a pack up, and then we're going to use that profile for multiple users. So for instance, I have a profile for the director, which might only be a single individual. DOP, same thing. But once I get down to like my camera channel, then I'm going to give anyone who's working on the camera side, I have a generic profile that I can hand them a pack to, and it's going to be the baseline configuration. And what I can do is I can control all the aspects of the Beltpack with this. Now I can still go back on a Beltpack by Beltpack basis and just change a single individual's Beltpack. So if I have a member of the camera channel and I give all the camera guys theirs day 1, Jason's going to come back to me and say, oh, I need this. And so I can open up Jason's pack and I can make that key change, and it will just be on his pack. If all the camera guys come back, I can change the profile, and then that'll change all the packs running on that profile. I can upload it in one go. So it's just a really easy way of getting the system out into people's hands day 1, and then you can work on the customizations as they come in. So it just streamlines the workflow a fair bit.
Actually, I've got a quick question to that. Is that,
Yeah, sure.
Once I start getting into the menu and I start playing around with like volume settings and stuff, I felt like at one point I was just trying to go through the menu to see what I could adjust. Is there a way to have whoever's managing it with maybe this system to reset anything that I've maybe touched and messed up?
Absolutely, yeah. So the at any time I can access the user interface and go right into your Beltpack and take a look what's going on. And if I want to, I can restore the profile again. So I can just upload the profile. Jasper's laughing, so I know he's probably
not only can I go in and change back the things you just broke, I can also lock you out of changing that again.
Yeah. I remember having a discussion with Jasper early on where we were texting back and forth, and he said, "Is there a way for me to like clear the like a key latch from like certain Beltpack, or see who has the key latched on like a certain Partyline channel?" And I said, "Well, you have to go into the Beltpacks right now. That's something we're working on. It's in our roadmap." And I said, "But just threaten them that they won't get latching anymore." And he said, "Well, there's a direct correlation between the hierarchy within the shoot and the ability to not latch and unlatch the key." And I said, "Oh, now I get what you're saying."
Yeah.
So obviously,
I found even just like depending when I was trying to test out different Bluetooth headsets, it was like depending on how those headsets sound themselves, I was trying to go in and adjust things, and I was like, I've just messed up. Like I probably messed up so much stuff now that I was like, how do I reset it back to normal so that this new headset that I have, make sure it's not me messing with the base station versus my actual headset.
Yeah. And so what Jasper could do for you is he would just upload your profile again.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go back to that baseline setting so that you haven't messed anything up at that point, and then you're good. So that's the easiest way to sort of do it. And just touching on that as well, within your profile, so there's a quick menu where if you press your menu button once, you get access to certain menu features. So this is where Jasper can lock you in and out of things. So he can say you can control, and if I go down to this drop down menu, I can see all the different things I control. So here's your Bluetooth. I can add that Bluetooth, and then I can apply that, and then now that Beltpack will have the ability on that quick menu to get at its Bluetooth. And then you might set up your Bluetooth, and I might go, you know what? It's actually a really good idea if I just get rid of that Bluetooth now, because he finally configured it. So I can just get rid of it, and then or I clear all and I add them again. So I can just decide exactly what I want you to see. So in that sense there, and I can actually apply the hierarchy where I'm going to decide that based on that sliding chart, as people get up to this higher hierarchy, that I'm going to lock them out of more menu settings on the quick menu. And, I'm going to give people, I might give Jeremy, who maybe want to communicate to multiple departments, I'm going to give him a little bit more flexibility on the menu that he can get to, because, he's pretty competent at running his system and understanding the implications. So.
Actually, one thing to mention, Jason, that when you were in the Bluetooth thing, it made me think of it, was a function we hadn't talked about here yet, which we didn't really use much of, but I can see it's another one of these like, oh, you can do this function, which is the ability to pair your phone to the Beltpack. So you could actually meld in a conference call with someone who's like speaking over a phone that you can either have a private conversation with or blend them into a conference line, or for everyone who wants to hear it. But in a remote situation, if you're working with someone remotely who's either calling in, over FaceTime or some other or a phone call, they could be melded into the system and be part of the conversation with everyone who's on a headset.
Yeah, exactly. And this came up when I was on Why the Last Man. What the AD was particularly excited about that, because in COVID, for instance, there's a fair amount of management of the actors as they go on and off set. So so basically he was able to communicate to them directly, like a phone call to know, maybe from a driver who's off site, to say that that person's en route, and that if there was an implication to the shoot schedule, then he could pair in a DOP or director or right into the AD conference channel, so that everyone was aware of the situation. So yeah, very. And
it's like having a conference call where that person on the phone is actually now part of it. You can talk to them, and anyone who's on that channel can hear them and talk to them.
Yeah, it's just like the Partylines of old, where you get the first minute for free and then it hangs up on you, and it's $3 for each additional minute. so it's a totally seamless way of doing things, and we see that a lot. Like we have a lot of users use that for various things, like on the broadcast side, for instance, if you're having problems with a piece of equipment, you may call a support line or a support individual, and then now you can pair that phone into your headset and then be working hands-free on the problem. And if key in at maybe someone who's at a different area that needs to actually look at the far end of whatever that device is connected to, and you can do that quickly and easily to kind of address a problem that's happening and get the downtime taken care of so you can be back shooting again.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of different things that you can control on the Beltpack. This is the general setting. So notifications, I can name the Beltpack whatever I want. This is the ID. I can control whether the walkie-talkie mode comes on automatically or when the headset's disconnected or unpaired. Here you see the display brightness, so I'm controlling the brightness of the display on the pack. I have volume controls. I can even record the comm internally. It records it inside the antenna, and I also can control how people can be added on and off the network here as well. So I can allow Beltpacks to register on multiple networks and such. So a lot of different controls here on the Beltpack that we can make changes on. Audio-wise, here's where I talked about where side tone. So, side tone is something that sort of echo mechanism that most people are used to on intercom systems where they know their key is open or latched. They'll hear a bit of themselves back. So here I can adjust it and I can introduce it into the system. I just did a demo with a DOP who was very used to an HME workflow, and he says, "How come my key's latched but I can't hear myself?" I said, "Well, hold on, let me put that back in for you." So we were able to put that back in and control that. So I can do the headset mic. So if there's someone who's yelling all the time and they're a yeller or a screamer, I can actually just take their headset volume down locally, so that not everyone has to ride their level. So there's a lot of different enablements here. This is the speaker mic that that's the walkie-talkie feature. I can enable it and disable it. So the one that most frequently come in is this is where we decide what the keys are. So this is where you're going to spend your meat and potatoes time for the majority of the show, as everyone sort of decides what they're doing. Jasper can probably talk to this more, but from my past experience working in comms, generally comms is like really, really busy for the first couple of days, as people sort of figure out what they want and who they need to talk to. And I think with Bolero being introduced onto the set as well, it's a bit of a game changer too, in terms of now you have a smorgasbord of choice. So people are coming to grips with having a system that they can actually have a lot more possibilities on. So there's even more sort of feeling around going on. But after the first couple of days, it'll settle down, and the system will really, everyone that's connected the way that they want to, the system will kind of sort of run itself. So once again, everything is dropped down on here. So I have talks, I have listens, replies. So if I set up a talk as I have here, that's bi-directional between the individual. Here I can set up the type of key. So momentary means that if I press and hold the key, I can talk on it. If it's latching, if I press it and let it go, it will automatically latch that key open permanently. And then I can set it to auto. So if I press and hold, it will do momentary. If I press and release quickly, it will do latching. So this is how I can control how the key functions on my Beltpack. So in scenarios where the user needs to function hands-free, then they're going to want a latching. But I do that on a key-by-key basis. So for instance, my DOP may have a latching key to his camera conference, but he's not going to have a latching key maybe to the director, because he'll have momentary conversations with the director and not want to have the ability to latch his key open. So that's kind of the ways that we get to that granular level in the workflow, where we're starting to automate a lot of those pieces where you'd be like, oh, I don't want to make sure that I'm not connected to the director right now because I can't be interrupting him. Yeah, and everything's dropped down. This is the priorities as well. So talk low priority, talk high priority. We have listen high priority, listen low priority. So what we're doing as well is applying automation. So where we have a talk high priority, where we would do the most, that's when that director has a discussion. If you have the director on your Beltpack and you're listening as a talk key and listen key, it will automatically dim all other conversations occurring on your Beltpack if that individual speaks. And then listen low priority we use that workflow a lot for program sound, for the ComTech sound. So if someone talks to you, you want that to auto dim for you, and you want that to happen quickly. Set trigger, monitor trigger. This is where we get into a GPIO workflow, where we can use the GPIO. We can program a key to have it fire off an event. So for instance, the lighting team could use this to fire a next command to a DMX controller to move from one lighting queue to the next lighting queue. He can do that via his pack, which is really, really, really interesting to do. And then menu shortcut. So here's where we get into the idea where we talked about having 7 programmable keys and not having, they're not channels, they're not necessarily COM channels. So I could put a menu shortcut there. One thing I could do there is there's a menu shortcut for a profile change. So I could put that key on an individual person's belt pack, and you can become the traffic cop for like the whole system. So Jasper probably had this where someone calls him and I'm having a problem on this belt pack. He could just change his profile to match that profile and check it out quickly if he wanted to. And it's, you know, it's a level that he could handle. So, and you can also program volume increases and decreases on the keys as well. Rotaries, same thing. We have the 2 rotary controls, and we can apply those to the master level. So that's setting the overall level of all the channels mixed into my headset, or I can assign that rotary to an individual key and have quick control on that key. So, and we could do that on a belt pack by belt pack or profile scenario. Quick menu, we talked about this before. I can decide, you know, this shows me the entire menu structure, and I can decide what the users see on their belt packs and what they can control. So I can add functions to people who can handle it, and I can lock people out of people I don't want to have them do it. And then the rest of these items you won't really use all that much, so I won't cover them.
Can we go back to the audio channels for a second?
Sure.
No, the actual channels. Cancel out of there. Go back to audio channels on the highlights on the top.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, no, it was in the belt packs.
Belt packs.
Yeah, editing one of those. Yeah, your rotaries.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
So ordinarily, we would have like one of the rotaries, the first rotary basically just doing the master. So it's everything up and down. And the second rotary would be just doing the ComTech. So
that's how I have mine set up. I did that. I think we all did that.
Yeah, I think for most of us, that's how it kind of settled out. Inside the keys, this is also where I would go if I knew that the dolly grip was now keyed open on all because they're lifting the dolly up 3 flights of stairs. And I hear that going on and it's just huff and puff and the director is looking at me with his eyes crossed. I would actually go into the dolly grips belt pack right here, go to his all talk channel, switch it from auto or latching to momentary for a moment, and then switch it back to whatever it was. And that would be what would kick somebody off of being keyed. And this is also where, if such a thing ever happens from Riedel, I'd love to be able to click into somebody's belt pack or have an idea of whose belt packs are actually open keyed and what channels they're on, so that I would be able to, you know, as the admin, sort of manage when somebody's embarrassingly open.
Yeah, and I fed that back to the product team, and I think the idea is that the best way to show that information would be like basically a point, like a cross point diagram that you could then see where the cross point was and just be able to disconnect that. And we could do that when the Bolero is connected to a wired matrix currently with our director systems. It's just not a feature that's on the standalone currently. So yeah, that covers all the setting up of the belt packs and setting the profiles. And just lastly, these are our conferences. These are super easy. If you want a conference, you just create a conference, or we call them a party line. You name it, you add it and create it. And the way that we administer the conferences on the system is if we program the conference key to your belt pack, you're on that conference. So we're not managing it in terms of like who's in the conference and we have to tag all those people in the conference. if you want to be on that conference, all we need to do at an administrative level is put it on a key on your Beltpack to you, and then you can just go from there. So, and that's pretty much the UI in a nutshell.
It's, I mean, as you can see, it's like it's very in depth, as in depth as you want it to be. And the nice thing is that if you were, say you're working, say in short format, and you're doing commercials, which a lot of our friends are in commercial land, you could basically have a system that's set up that's kind of preset for a commercial crew, that you turn on the system and all the Beltpacks are configured in a standard way, and you wouldn't have to necessarily go through and do the whole thing over again. But for a larger show, you would want to spend time and prep to figure out roughly what your structure is. Use that Excel spreadsheet that we showed earlier, put in all your people, hand that off to your Bolero admin person, and then they basically build the programming before the first day of shooting. So you're not showing up and having to like do this on the fly. You can kind of show up and have it all pre-done, and then, as Jason said, people can ask for tweaks once they get up and running, but you basically have it all ready before you start shooting. On our show, we did that during our camera test. We had a kind of a Bolero day where people were taught how to use it, and the system was already set up, so it wasn't like starting from scratch. But there's a few ways of doing that. But I think we've covered a lot. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to say anecdotally that we've missed?
Well, it's just, to me, one of the most exciting things when we signed on with Riedel was the ability to communicate wirelessly. I'm going to date myself a little bit. I was an AD back in the 80s, and we had these cheap Radio Shack intercom systems that I used to use to communicate with the PAs with, and you'd always be ripping it off your head because of the wire. But the fact that you can use this with a good quality wireless Bluetooth headset, talk normally and normal volume levels is phenomenal, and the ability to have the multiple party lines as well, for within your department, with other departments, and be in direct communication with the director alone or the DOP alone. It's phenomenal. This is one of the most exciting products that we have in our lineup for sure, and really happy to be on board with Jason.
And I think in some ways it's not like a sexy topic from a filmmaking standpoint. I mean, as far as this level of infrastructure, it's not lighting and camera stuff and techniques, but really it's probably one of the most important tools that we have as far as working together, COVID times or not. I mean, I would say that this is one of our top, most important tools to have, so we can work together well, and not end the day being all exhausted from screaming across a room kind of thing. So I think it's for me one of our most important tools by far.
But honestly, look at the shape of the Beltpack. Like that's like, look, hold it up. There we go. Come on, that's sexy.
It's sexy. Okay, well, we should let everyone go enjoy their Sunday afternoons, or what's left of it. And thank you everybody for being part of this and taking the time to share our stories about this. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys soon. Have a great holiday, and thank you, Jason and Peter, for being part of it, and Jason Vieira and Jasper and Malcolm and Christina, of course, in the background for running things with us. We will see you all very soon in the new year.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great job. Thanks, Jeremy, again. And